So I want to welcome you all to the Path of Gimel Pathworking class, and we are meeting after a fairly significant break. I was pretty tired by the holiday season and a bunch of familial stresses. But I think we're ready to get going again and finish this project up and move on to other projects. So I haven't done this before because I haven't had them, but I've got the cards now. So this is the card for Gimel, and if you look at the other side, you can see it's got some of the attributes, the traditional ones, and then a few of my little New Hermetics ones. And so those will be coming along to those of you who ordered them within the next few days. I just have to finish assembling all the decks. In addition to that, while I was working on the tarot decks, I also made this interesting set of Archangel cards. In the New Age store where I do a lot of readings, there are about, I guess this woman named Doreen Virtue has done like 5 or 6 different Archangel decks. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those at all, but I took a look at them, and I actually find the artwork to mostly be sort of ridiculous. The messages in them are fine, I guess. Although her interpretation of the archangels is very sort of askew from the traditional Kabbalistic one, and it's strange because that Kabbalistic stuff is not at all hard to find. If you type any of the archangel names into the internet, you'll find both the what I would call the Doreen Virtue archangel stuff, but then equally you'll find the more Kabbalistic stuff, and I don't know why she has chosen to sort of invent her own mythology that really doesn't have any existence previous to her utilizing it. But it's actually kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's interesting because, like, if you look on the internet, you'll see a number of people who kind of quote chapter and verse from Doreen Virtue's system of archangels, which is kind of interesting to me. But so I was looking at them, and I decided that I would make some of my own, and I just basically made these kind of like, I'll show a different one. This one's the Metatron one, which is relevant today, but this just some sort of like, they're like almost like Rorschach test archangelic figures, and then they've got the colors that are appropriate to the Sephiroth. And that's not something that I'm selling right now, but I might at some point in the future. But I just thought I would bring it because we haven't had a whole lot of visual imagery of what I kind of have in mind. But this sort of like angelic shape is kind of what I had in mind for the recordings when you connect with the archangels, that it's sort of that kind of an essence of the angel, rather than trying to really focus in on a detailed image. I don't know how you guys experience that, but that's kind of my intention. So these cards too, the Hebrew cards, which I don't think I'm going to be selling, just because I mean it's a pain to have to keep things in stock and send them out to people when they order them. I might the site where I got them printed is actually a game site, and I might actually have them up on that site for people if people want to order them from them, just to get them out there. But so let's talk about people's experiences with the path of Dalit. Where are people at with that? I know it's been a while since we really met, so but all of you have had those experiences, so let's talk about it for a few minutes. What was the most interesting thing that you guys experienced from that particular path? Kevin says that he felt like his creative self opened up in him. That's excellent. I've been listening to those upper path workings recently, and they're very sort of open-ended, and they they invite you into an experience which obviously they can't force you into. So you're going to experience what you experience from them, and nothing more. And it's more of like a taste of connecting with the divine than anything else. Um, Certainly, there's all sorts of different aspects of it that can be opened up. Uh, Rundine says, connecting and visualizing the void, nothingness, awesome feeling, elated. Yeah, I mean, they definitely produce in me a sense of bliss and a sense of, just sort of wonder at the universe, and a sense of, contentment, and a feeling like, oh, it's not, the little petty problems of a human being are pretty insignificant in comparison with the universe. Um, but I mean, they ask a lot of you. I mean, the Gimel one, it basically says, okay, start with the feeling of fusion with the universe, and then from there expand into feeling like you are the divine and loving light that rains down from the ultimate, and then enter into the ultimate. Pretty intense stuff, and Dalit is not much different. Juan says, Kevin says, saw the angel Sandalphon and the angel Raziel and felt very one with them. And then Juan says, Dalit, from what I understand, mostly in feeling, was that of unconditional love and bliss, and the way the universe looks at it, and not so much from the human perspective. Right, and so I mean, what we're attempting to enter into in these last few path workings, essentially divine consciousness, and of course, each of us are limited in how much we can open up to that consciousness fully at this time. So, I'd be curious to know in what ways you guys felt like you fell short of the goal of the recordings, as well as the ways in which you felt like you really sunk into them really well, because that's just as interesting and just as helpful for yourself to understand and to explore. So, the path of Daleth is love. It's the interconnection point between expansion and contraction, and the sort of the path that connects all opposites, and it's associated with Venus for that reason. And so, hopefully, you guys felt a sense of connection with that all-loving universal nature that's deep within all of us. Robin, Brandusha, Rurik, you guys don't have anything to say? Do you not remember your experiences? Renusha says no. No, she doesn't have something to say, or no, she doesn't remember her experiences. I'm not sure which. Juan says, with Daleth, it was odd at times to see the universal perspective on even the most human of things, and it did leave me with a closer pull towards a more divine awakening. Robin says, other than the peacefulness, remember it was mostly unremarkable for me at this time. Have been considering that aspect itself. Bernusha says, it was so long ago, I need to do it again. Yeah. I understand that, certainly. Well, so Robin says that she tends to do them several times to get a good feel for each one, and so in each of those times it's a different experience. It's never the same experience twice. So, Robin, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what was the least effective experience and the most effective experience with those recordings? And those of you who also have listened to them several times, go ahead and I'm specifically talking about Daleth at this point. So, Robin, that was listening to Dalit that you had the key flying over your shoulder, or was that the a different one? I can't remember. Juan says that he thinks that what Robin's saying is a good idea, and he agrees with me that each listening produces slightly different effects. I mean, certainly because we're approaching it from a different place. It may be a different time of day, or it may be a different sequence of events have been happening beforehand, and so each of the components of it is going to strike us in different ways. Kevin says the first time was rather unremarkable, but then the second time, if he felt like he was really able to get into it, flew into the center of the vortex, and became one with all and in all. And Robin says the key was the 15th path. Well, I mean, the thing is that content-wise, as I said before, I think these latter ones, the higher up on the Tree of Life recordings, are going to be they have much less content. They're much less about your personality and fixing things in your personality, and more just about opening up to a deeper experience of the divine. And so there's honestly going to be less to report to a large extent. Robin says that the least effective recordings in general seem to be the ones that leave her feeling peaceful and comfortable, and she figures these must be working more on my subconscious than my conscious parts. I mean, the thing is that the earlier recordings were about challenging the components of our personalities that aren't working effectively, and removing some of those sheaths in order to move more into the divine. But at this point, we're starting way into the divine consciousness and just moving further into it. So these recordings aren't going to have as much really content at all. Kevin says, I believe that when you have something in your life that really needs working on, you get more out of the one which touches on what you need. If you are someone who doesn't need a certain thing in one of the paths, then you will receive less. Or maybe it is the one you are not ready for at that time. Yeah, I mean, I think both of those things are true, Kevin, that, sometimes people aren't ready for, a particular experience, and so it doesn't hit them. But often, yeah, there are things that just aren't. I mean, it was interesting to me because I remember early on in these, there were people who were, the paths that I considered to be rather pleasant, people were finding scary, and the paths that I considered to be sort of scary, people were finding pleasant. So I mean, we each have our area where we are, which is our comfort zone, and the area which is sort of our learning curve. And yeah, each of us is going to be in a somewhat different place with that. Brendine says, I found experiencing the divine in a remarkable way and need much more time with it, opening the door of understanding, experiential of one, and union, feeling one. Well, I mean, here's the interesting thing, Brendine. The next two recordings, or three recordings that we're going to do are all, Gimel, Beth, and Aleph are all going to be leading us into that divine consciousness very directly, into the unitive divine consciousness. And what I think will be really interesting will be to see how you guys react to each one of those, since it's you're going to be coming from a slightly different spot in coming to it, and which one will be the most effective and which one will be the least effective. Ultimately, it's leading to the same place. And Bina and Chokmah are both elements of Kether, but they are sort of extensions, and so there may be, you may feel more comfortable in one of those rather than in Kether, or vice versa. And so it'll be interesting to see where our consciousness sort of likes to taste the divine, likes to have that that taste of singularity, that taste of universality. So there still is more to be explored, although more and more the experience that we're heading towards is just simply that state of no longer resisting our infiniteness. So let's start talking about this next path, which leads from Tiphereth to Kether, and it, the associated tarot card with it is the High Priestess, and the the moon is its energy, and basically it's the light, the reflected light of the divine moving into Tiphereth, and basically this is the path of the middle pillar on the tree of life, which is sort of the mystical opening path to just awakening into divine consciousness. And so we're moving from a sense of fusion with the universe, a sense of uniting our consciousness with the universe, which is the Tiphereth experience, through a sense of love and compassion and just sort of outward flowing loving energy into that singularity. And so it's a pretty advanced move, and I think that on some days someone might be more available to the experience than on others. So I would definitely suggest working with this particular recording several times before you feel like you have gotten everything that you can out of it. And one of the things that I think that it's going to come up with these next few recordings is a sense of am I fully entering into them? And of course the answer is no. You're not going to be completely opening into these experiences. Rather, you're going to be tasting them to an extent, and maybe one or two of you will open up into it completely. I can't make that statement for certain, but the point of them is more to sort of taste that divine unity, that complete, utter, oneness of all things. Brandusha says the Princess of the Silver Star. Yes, that's the esoteric name of that tarot card. Brendine says, I've been trying to generate the heat for healing energy consistently. Kundalini states it comes from the union of all into one. That is a simple explanation of a complex idea, I think, but connecting to the oneness seems to be the secret to generating healing energy. For sure. I mean, we're if you think about that, the meditation that precedes the invocation that precedes all of these path workings, the Kabbalistic one, essentially it is a Kundalini raising experience. I even make reference to the fiery serpent of our rising up to that divine level, and then bringing that energy down into our bodies, and acknowledging ourselves as infinite and as all powerful and all capable of transforming our worlds, and so that invocation in and of itself, if you think of it as a Kundalini activity, is absolutely that. Juan says, as always, Juan has jumped ahead to the next one, which I don't blame anyone for doing this time because it's been a while, but Gimel was a rather nice surprise, as it allowed more of my own imagination, like the older path workings. At some point in these works, my mind fell in place with many of your guided visualizations on the path. Gimel did not follow that order. Instead, it allowed me to fill in the visualization. Overall, the experience was amazing and humbling. Yeah, I mean, I think that these last ones very much are pretty open-ended, just because they have to be, with the nature of what they are. So I think you can expect that to be taking place in all the ones from now on. So the path is a simple one. I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a powerful recording, and the next two are powerful as well. I mean, I actually I mean, honestly, it depends on your state as much as anything else, and your willingness to kind of, flow along with it. But um, I feel like all of these upper path ones are extremely powerful simply because of the fact that there's been so much kind of building of energies and building of connections with these thought places that it just creates a very powerful impact on the consciousness. Um, uh, I'm talking. Brendan asks, the invocation is a Kundalini one. Who is the maiden, if I can ask? Okay. So what I'm referring to is the invocation that takes place once you're in the inner temple. Um, but the maiden is the daughter. She's the the church, the kingdom, the divine creation is what she basically represents. Um, and she is the bride, so to speak. And um, Brendine says daughter as in princess, and I don't know what you mean in tarot. Yes, absolutely. She's the princesses of the tarot. Um, that her energy, yeah, which is Malkuth. Is there anyone, Robin? I think maybe you didn't. Everyone else, I think, who's here actually ordered my tarot deck, and so we'll be getting it fairly soon. Um, but yeah, Brandusha. Actually, it's not just the Aleister Crowley deck. The Golden Dawn, all the Golden Dawn decks use the princess instead of the page, um, and that's to represent the Tetragrammaton with the king the kings who are usually actually called knights, strangely enough, in the Golden Dawn text, and then the queens are the Yod and He, and then the princes, who would be what is called the knights in other tarot decks, represent the Vav, and then the princess represents the He final. So they're very and my tarot, the only reason I brought it up is because my tarot actually depicts that as well, but utilizing the Enochian tablets as background for it. Um, so uh, the but in addition, if you think about the princess as well on that first path, when you enter into the tunnel, there's a princess who's dancing with a snake, and she too is Kundalini. She is Kundalini Shakti, who is also another aspect of that princess, of that Malkut energy. So the path of Tao, yeah. So these symbols are actually are very interrelated, and if I'm, you Kundalini and the Western kind of version of Kundalini is very tied into Qabalah. There's a lot of sort of energy openings taking place in these path workings as well. So. When we are done, it might be useful for everyone to go through all 22 of them again and notice the path that's being created by them. Like sort of one after the other. So how's everybody been doing? In their lives and holidays and all that? Okay, some questions coming in. Juan and Robin ask, I think, fairly similar questions, but in different words. Juan says, what are some of the things you would like to see us get from these last paths as we begin to work them? And Robin says, may I ask, other than opening yourself up to the divine, are there ways to enhance, regularly bring about these experiences? How do others open up to the divine consciousness to experience it, other than just allowing yourself to experience the recordings, life moments? Is there anything you do, or do you truly simply allow things to be and just be aware of things being? Juan says, thanks, Robin, and Robin says, ditto, Juan. So, I mean, Robin, I think, honestly, that the two ways that a person can open up to the divine from a Western perspective, well, I guess there's three ways, and that is either to, as you say, just open up to it, just to sort of surrender to the experience, and the other is to act as if, which is to ritually self connect with the deification through ritual acts, or through connecting oneself with the various energies through specific activities that we do to make that happen. Like, for instance, I hate to keep bringing this up, but the invocation at the beginning of the Pathworkings is just such a thing in which we sort of we speak to our divine nature, and we verbally express that, and so enter into it, and then the third way is through just sort of offering devotion and offering prayers, specifically in the directing our attention to moving and more into the divine. I mean, those three are the basic ways in which we approach it. These path workings kind of offer a fusion of those three things in some ways, because there are some elements of ritual, there are some elements of visualization, and there's some elements that are sort of more prayer-like. So it does offer a bit of a combination, but those are essentially the three methods that people utilize. And you ask about regularly bringing about experiences. I mean, the thing is, experiences of connection with the divine tend to be peak experiences, and peak experiences tend not to be something that we have as a regular part of our lives. If we were to constantly have peak experiences every few hours or something like that, it would cease to be meaningful at that point. I mean, it might be very pleasant, but it might also actually become less pleasant. I mean, there's aspects of the divine experience that are frightening and discombobulating, and much like the experience of the tower, they tend to tear apart our perceptual frameworks of what we think things are. And so, I personally feel like the easiest method is just to simply open up to the divine, and to allow things to unfold in a natural way, so that we don't have too traumatic of experiences. It looks like Kevin is giving some things that he does, and I think that it would be great if people shared some of their specific kind of ritual activities or prayerful activities that they do in order to bring about these things. And Juan, I'll get to the specifics of your question in a couple of minutes. Juan mentions dancing into a trance. Absolutely. My children love to spin around in circles and then lay on the ground and feel the universe collapse. Medusa says it is beautiful in the unifying of the three. Kevin says, for myself, I go through a cleansing ritual first, and then I meditate and complete my morning prayers. Then I do the grounding and centering, and then do the path working. But I don't always do everything in that order. Sometimes I vary order. Renusha says, I remember the tower path last year on my birthday. It was not pleasant, I recall. Um, but I mean the tower in the broader sense of just simply that our expectations of things um, tend to take us along a specific trajectory, and uh, mystical experience of the divine tends to sort of pull those apart. Uh, Brendine says, I see the invocation as moving more into the divine and controlling the universe with our words and thoughts. Um, One says, Robin, you may find it best to not have any expectations and allow for each ritual or devotion to open you up in a more natural flow. Naturally, keeping a journal will aid you in tracking just how each ritual or devotion had its effect upon you. And thanks, Jason. Um, Producer says, yes, indeed, it was like that, Jason, in the Path of the Tower. Yeah, I mean, um, the uh, the expectations that I have for you in these last paths, um, what I'd like to see happen is for you to approach them, you know, with open hearts and empty expectations, and to see how you relate to each one of them. These last three paths, Gimel, Beth, and Aleph, all begin from one of the higher Sephirah and then proceed to Kether, and so they're pretty abstract in their this is the least so because it begins from Tiphereth, which is actually in the middle, and it's also the most direct because it just goes up the middle pillar. But what I'd like for you guys to do is to explore how your relationship with these unfolds. I'd like you to sort of notice the differences between them. Now, I'd like to try and meet next week, and I will schedule that today, and try and do these last three weeks in a row. I don't believe that I'm going to be working any of these Sundays, so it should be possible. And then from there we can move on to other stuff. Okay, so everyone is talking now. Robin said, thank you, Juan. Juan says, always at your service. Medusa says, I can't wait to do them. Robin says, available, smile. Juan says, relationships on a personal level or a more global level. Kevin says, cool. I'm assuming that I used the word relationship in terms of the path. I'm not sure. Your reaction to the paths as they are, and where you feel more comfortable. Is it more comfortable for you to begin in Tiphereth, or is it more comfortable for you to begin in Bina? Where is your sort of entrance to the divine the easiest? Where is it hardest? Are you feeling like you are truly connecting with the divine as fully as you can? How can you open up more deeply to these experiences? How can you allow yourself to pull away the masks of identity more? These paths are, in a way, up here particularly, they're a bit artificial, because we're beginning in a spot that isn't really a beginning spot, and we're moving to an end which really isn't an end. It's a pointing to an end. So that doesn't take away from the ability for them to lead you into spiritual experience, but it is something artificial, and that should be kept in mind, that the real experience is something that is beyond any instructions that I can really give you in a recorded form or even in a live form. You simply have to unravel the the tendrils of it yourself in order to open up completely. Brendine says, thank you for connecting the Kundalini Shakti middle pillar and invocation that connects a visualization that opens a great deal for me. Juan says, thank you. Perfect. Thank you for clearing that up. Robin says, those are all of my questions, Jason. And Juan says, you can only lead one to the door, we must ultimately walk through on our own. Yes, and the thing is, you can really only point to the door and hope that someone can even see it, because the door is not, I mean, it's a door that's not a door. You know, there's no door. So it's not even, possible to completely point it out. I mean, the facts are, what you are now in this moment is not really different than what you are in the divine state. There's just simply some other stuff that you are considering to be true that may or may not be true. Juan says, wow, only point to it and hope one sees it. Thank you, Jason, that was a moment. Brindusha says, each of one of us has a journey to fulfill, unique and transformative. Yes. And each of us are on a slightly different journey. I was born in Massachusetts and I live in Florida. Everyone else has a different story than that. I mean, I guess there are some people who were born in Massachusetts who also live in Florida, but they weren't born at the same moment or in the same place that I was. So, each of us has a different set of distortions and models that we're looking to break down or recreate in a more valuable way. Kevin says, when they are ready, the door will appear, and if it appeared before, they may have been ready for a short time but turned away previously. Coming back, will they go through the door? It's an interesting question. I ask myself that question sometimes of my own life. There are times when there's this marvelous sense of clarity, this marvelous sense of connection, this marvelous sense of having seen through all of the illusions, and then sometimes some illusions come back, and we need to see through them again. But we can see through them again. There's no one-way trips. Unfortunately, it would be nice if. And I suppose, according to the Buddha and according to certain teachings of Jesus and other, mystical teachers throughout the ages, that there are transformative experiences that are absolutely permanent, and that we are no longer the same after them. We know that there's no turning back, and there's no the transformation is permanent and one that is a complete transformation into divine being. The thing about that, though, is that in some ways that's a limitation, which creates a logic loop, so to speak. If I can no longer retrace my steps to where I was before, that means that I'm less than I was then. And so it seems that we need to carry everything with us the whole way up the mountain and hopefully redeem it rather than trying to erase things. Brindusha says that she feels like that she's not the same as she was months ago. That she's so very different now. Brindine says, this is one that is so profound for me that there is no turning back. And Kevin says, extremely different, Robin, so am I. Yeah, we do change. But we also stay the same. All of the things that were there before are still there. They just have a different color to them. So Robin is asking again. Kevin brings up an interesting point. If the door appeared before and one turned back, what guarantee is there that specific door will appear again in the future? Well, I mean, there isn't really a door. So it's not like mystical gateway that needs to be passed through. Although certainly you can have that experience, but that's not that's a it's a metaphor. Um, so, but I mean, the metaphor can be translated into a real experience of passing through some sort of a gateway. That is certainly a real experience that a person can have. But the truth of the matter is that the the door is a recognition of the things which are illusory and the things which are real, the things which are permanent and the things which are temporary. And there isn't really a door to pass through there. Robin says, from my experience, I've turned away from doors I should have gone through before. Sure, some have come back around for me to try again, yet others I've yet to see again, this lifetime at least. Sure. But I mean, of course, we've all had that kind of experience. Oh, it would have been nice if I had, said yes to that job opportunity because now I'd be a multi-millionaire. Oh, it would have been great if I had pursued writing that book because then I, would have won a Pulitzer Prize. Or there, there is no guarantee that you're going to have the same experience a second time. That the thing which you almost understood is going to suddenly be understood. There's no guarantee of that. Of course not. But it's available to you if you want it. Kevin says, agreed, Robin, it is why I mentioned it. So it has happened to me. I'm happy if I find a door I once shunned. Radusha says, I remember my Tiphereth experience when I had the unification with my guardian angel. I will never forget that. It was one of a lifetime experiences. Robin says, not so much material things, more along the lines of the spiritual experiences, my meaning. I know, I was just using a material example because it's easier to wrap your head around, but the spiritual, it's the same thing. You're on the verge of passing into a state or wrapping your attention around an experience, and you fall short of it. That is much easier, if you think about it, to re-enter into, or perhaps to enter into a preferable way, than the temporary experience of, should I have bought those shoes? Because the shoes may go out of fashion and just pass away because they're temporary things, but the spiritual experiences are eternal, and so they're always going to be there. Juan says, same deal. Robin, the sense of peace you may get once will not likely be the very same sense of peace you get the very next time you are allowed to go through a level or gateway or door, etc. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that, and this is a tough, this is a tough thing, Robin. The important truth is not in an experience. The peak experiences that we have, where we connect with an angelic presence, or we connect with a divine, a divine other, and we have a unitive experience, are beautiful and life transforming, but they're basically conversion experiences. In other words, there's something that tells us that there is something to all this stuff. But they don't necessarily teach us anything. They don't necessarily make life easier in any way. It's the understandings that we wrap our head around that are really the transformative experiences that are important. Now, let me rephrase that. More important. The peak experiences, the experiences of light and unity, and those are very important in that they change our perception of what is and what can be. But it is when we settle into an understanding of how to relate to the world in a way that's less seeing hostility in every turn, less seeing an adversary in our very experience. That we're really entering into a place where we're growing as into the divine. But I see a lot of people are commenting here, so I'm just going to go back and read some of this. Juan says, each one will bring you to a clear definition of the truth of your world, my friend. Robin says, here I'm thinking visualization and a return to that time experience and then try to re-experience it. Brandusha says, different states of consciousness, hopefully higher and higher. Brandine says, it is nice to understand the practical benefit of the paths and tree for bringing change to myself and others, the practical use. But I realize we are experiencing it first, then move forward. Juan says, Jason, this is a masterful class. Truly, you are shaking pillars and foundations with this one, my friend, or a teacher. Friends, listen carefully. Juan says, seek not the door, seek only the point. So, what we want to do is experience bliss and the beauty of our natural state, of our true divine state, so that we can move through life more aware of the fact that it's just a passing set of circumstances. But wanting to be in that unitive state constantly, that can actually become an addiction. Kevin says, amen, Juan. Juan says, his words, not mine. Thanks, Kevin. Brandusha says, passing is indeed the right word for it. So, what I would like for you guys to do with these paths, and let's focus on Gimel for now, we'll get to the other ones as we get to them, is to allow yourself to enter into that unitive vision as much as you can. But then as you're walking through your life, notice how it's true even then. Notice how there's no difference between your experience of things and the experience itself. Ultimately, they're one thing. They may seem to be two things, or hundreds of things, or thousands of things, but they're one thing. Brandusha says, acknowledging, transforming, moving forward on our path. Brandine says, learning to change my personal world right now and seeing the importance of transforming myself. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. These paths that we're working on right now are probably paths that are somewhat more than we need to be working on right now, you know. Most of us could probably do well to go back to the, 32nd through 20th paths and work with those for a while longer. A lot of the transformative work that you guys are wanting to work on really takes place in those areas. But we're going to walk this path to the end and experience what we can from those, from these higher paths. So now this path here, back to what Brandine was talking about with Kundalini, this path again has a Kundalini relationship in that the high priestess is Kundalini Shakti as well, or Prana Shakti anyway, and working with this energy is again opening up that Kundalini channel on a deep metaphysical level. So everyone's telling me that I'm shaking the pillars. It's good to shake the pillars every once in a while. So does anyone have any more questions? Does everyone feel like they're equipped to move forward with this? Excellent. Well, Brandusha asked a question about the meaning of camel, and the Hebrew letter is this, connected with the camel. I mean, that's just the name of it. Now, from an archetypal, Brandusha is, well, you're answering your own question. Why are you asking me the question if you've got the answer? But yeah, I mean, from an archetypal perspective, the camel represents the path across the desert, the carrier across the desert of the abyss, which is the above Chesed. Between Chesed and Bina, there's a sort of a barrier between what is the world as it is manifesting and what is the eternal divine world. And so the camel is that beast which can get across the desert, the abyss of the desert. And it is, as Brandusha mentions, the longest path on the Tree of Life. So certainly much longer than any other one because of the fact that it goes through the hole where there would be another Sephira, but where that's Das. So Kevin says that he wants to grab onto the pillars as they shake. And shake them more, Kevin, or try and get them to straighten out. Juan says, certainly thank you for clearing up so much, and indeed much of what you said in this class has shaken the foundations, and in a very good way. Once more, thank you. I'll be looking forward to doing Gimel once again. And Brandusha says, crossing the desert through the abyss. And Kevin says that he just wants to hold on. But that's the thing is, Kevin, you need to not hold on. You need to just let it all collapse away. Holding on is preventing yourself from going through the doorway. And I think that we all when we face a big change, we all tend to resist it, at least somewhat. But luckily, some changes don't allow that to take place. So anyway, I will see you all in 7 days, 6 days and 23 hours, and have a great rest of your day. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff coming through here. Producer says double letter, peace, war, making reference to Sefer Yetzirah. Juan says, Jason, again, thank you for the reflections and the many gems you shared with us. Have an excellent day with the family. I thank each of you as well for making this class so very informative. I love each of you, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. Have a great weekend, my friends. Thank you, Jason, says Robin. See everyone next week. Yes, it's always great to see you guys, and I'm sorry that I've been unable to do the class. I've just been under a lot of stress. This has been a very challenging couple of months for us as a family, which, as some of you know, we had a kitty die last night too. So I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend or week, and I'll see you next weekend. Bye bye.